The ship was quiet that night. The corridors hummed with the low sound of the engines, and the lights outside the viewport were nothing but endless stars scattered across blackness. He sat in his room, half asleep, drifting between dreams and waking thoughts. Humans were not made for long voyages, not made for the cold silence of deep space, and yet he endured it. Alone, waiting for the next mission, the next reason to move forward. Then the door opened with a soft hiss. He sat up quickly, eyes wide, because no one ever came into his quarters without asking. The crew respected privacy. The crew respected distance. Yet there she was, an alien girl stepping into his room as if she belonged there. Her skin was silver, not metallic but soft, glowing faintly under the dim lights. Her hair was long and dark, falling over her shoulders like flowing ink. Her eyes shone faint blue like the glow of frozen fire. She was tall, graceful, but her steps were not confident. They were careful, hesitant, almost trembling. For a moment he thought he was dreaming. She looked too unreal, too fragile, too perfect against the cold walls of the ship. She stopped a few feet away from him and stared. Not with anger, not with curiosity, but with something deeper, like a storm was raging inside her and she was holding it back with all her strength. He wanted to ask why she was here, why she had come to his room of all places. But the words froze on his tongue when she reached up and unclasped the first piece of her armor. The plate dropped to the floor with a metallic sound that echoed in the small space. His chest tightened. He had seen her in armor many times, seen her fight, seen her lead, seen her stand taller than any warrior. But he had never seen her without it. For her people, armor was not just protection, it was identity. It was pride. It was heritage. To remove it was to strip away the mask that kept them strong. And now she was removing it, piece by piece in front of him. Another plate fell, then another. Each sound felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of her entire life was being shed onto the floor. Her hands shook, her breath uneven, but her eyes never left his. She looked like she was breaking apart and holding herself together at the same time. When only the soft underlayer remained, she whispered. Her voice was fragile, yet sharp, trembling, yet commanding. Don't look away. The words hit him harder than any weapon could. He realized then, it was not about intimacy, not about desire. It was about trust. It was about fear. It was about showing the part of herself no one was ever allowed to see. He swallowed hard, his throat dry. His instinct screamed to look down, to give her privacy, to respect the sacred act she was performing. But her eyes begged him not to. Her body trembled as she pulled away the last piece of fabric. Her scars were revealed, jagged lines across her ribs, burns along her arms, old wounds that had never fully healed. She stood tall but vulnerable, stripped of everything her people demanded she hide. And still she held his gaze. Her voice shook, almost breaking, but her words carried the weight of her soul. If you look away now, then I am nothing. The room was silent except for the pounding of his heart. He saw her, truly saw her, not the warrior, not the alien leader, but the girl who carried pain, fear, and shame beneath the armor. And though his body screamed to turn away, he didn't. He couldn't. Because in that moment he understood. This was not about weakness. This was about her choosing him above all others to see what no one else could. And that choice was heavier than any war, any battle, any crown. He sat frozen, eyes locked on her, heart racing like it wanted to break free from his chest. The silence in the room was not empty anymore. It was heavy, alive, almost crushing. Every second that passed carried weight. He could hear her uneven breathing, the way her chest rose and fell as if every breath was a battle. He thought back to the first time he had met her. She had been all steel and shadow, wrapped in shining armor, her voice steady like thunder, her eyes sharp enough to pierce through any lie. The crew had feared her, respected her, even admired her, but none had dared to step close. She was untouchable. She was a symbol, not a person, and yet the girl standing before him now was not the symbol. not the commander, not the warrior. She was someone stripped bare of all the walls she had built. He wanted to speak, but she raised her hand slightly, as if to stop him. Her glowing blue eyes trembled. "You wonder why I do this," she whispered. "Why I came here. Why I remove what no one is ever meant to see." Her voice cracked. She swallowed, and for the first time he saw her lips quiver like she was afraid of her own words. "My people, we are taught from birth that our armor is not just metal. It is us. We grow into it, we shape it, and it becomes our identity. Without it, we are nothing. Without it, we are shame." She bent down and touched one of the armor plates that lay scattered on the floor. Her fingers lingered on the cold surface like she was touching a memory. When we are young, we are told to never let another see us without it. To be seen is to be judged. To be judged is to be cast out. Only family, only those bound by blood, or oath may look beneath. Her hand tightened into a fist. She looked at him again, her gaze sharp and desperate. "Do you understand what this means?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Do you understand what I give you?" He swallowed, his throat dry. He didn't answer, not yet. Because deep down, he did understand. She was giving him something more than trust. She was giving him her very soul, but she was not done. "You will see my scars," she said, her voice growing louder, harsher, like she was fighting herself. "You will see the burns, the wounds, the pieces of me that are broken, and when you do, you will know the truth." Her shoulders shook. Her eyes fell for the first time, and she whispered like a child who had lost everything. "The truth is, I am not what they believe. I am not the perfect warrior. I am not unbroken." Her words stabbed deeper than any blade. He looked at her scars again, lines across her ribs, burns on her arms, faint marks on her legs that spoke of battles survived, but not without cost. She was right. She was not unbroken. She was not perfect. But she was real. And that truth was beautiful. She raised her head again, tears forming at the edges of her glowing eyes. "If you look away now," she repeated, softer this time, almost, begging, "then I am nothing, because then you prove what they say, that I am only worth the mask, the armor, the lie, that without it I am not worthy to stand." He felt his chest tighten painfully. She was not asking for comfort. She was not asking for desire. She was asking for acceptance, for someone to look at her brokenness and still not turn away. It hit him harder than anything before. This was not about her body. This was about her soul. She had carried this burden her entire life, never showing anyone, never daring to let another see. And now, for reasons he didn't yet know, she had chosen him. The air felt heavy. His eyes burned, but he did not blink, did not turn away. He wanted her to see it, to see that he was still there, still watching, still refusing to abandon her. For the first time, he understood. This was not just an alien ritual. This was her unspoken burden. A cry for someone, anyone, to accept her truth. And he knew, without doubt, that he could not fail her now. The silence in the room grew heavier, almost suffocating. He could hear the thump of his own heartbeat, feel the air catch in his lungs, and yet he could not look away. She stood in front of him with trembling shoulders, stripped of everything that made her untouchable. Her armor lay scattered across the floor like pieces of a shattered life. For her, people, those plates were sacred, symbols of pride, tradition, and honor. But now without them, she looked fragile, exposed, mortal, and for the first time since he had met her, he saw fear in her eyes. It wasn't the kind of fear he had seen in battle. He had fought beside her on more than one occasion, seen her stand, tall in the middle of chaos, blades flashing, her voice steady and commanding. That was the fear of survival, the kind every soldier knew. But this was something else, something deeper. This was the fear of rejection. Her glowing blue eyes flickered like unstable light, shimmering with tears she refused to let fall. She clenched her fists so tightly, her knuckles turned pale. Every part of her seemed to scream, that she wanted to run, to pick up her armor and hide again. And yet she stayed. She stayed because this moment mattered more than her terror. Slowly she turned her body to the side, revealing scars she had tried to keep hidden even now. Across her ribs stretched a jagged line, dark and uneven, the mark of a wound that had nearly killed her. Along her arms, faint burns traced patterns like fire had once kissed her skin and refused to let go. Some scars were old, faded with time, but others were fresher, raw and angry. He could almost feel the weight of her shame as she stood there, forcing herself to show what she believed no one should ever see. Her voice broke the silence, soft at first, then sharper as she spoke. "You see them, don't you?" she whispered. "The scars, the burns, the wounds that never healed. They mark me as weak. They mark me as less." Her words pierced his chest. He wanted to protest, to tell her she was wrong, but she pressed on, almost desperate. "To my people, these are shame. Proof that I failed, that I was struck, that I bled. A warrior should be untouchable. A warrior should not break. And yet here I stand, broken." Her shoulders trembled. She finally let her tears fall, shining like drops of light on her silver skin. She raised her hands as if to cover herself, but stopped midway, forcing them down again. "I came here," she said, her voice cracking, "because I needed to know. If you see me, truly see me, and you turn away, then I know they were right, that I am nothing, that I am not worthy to stand beside anyone, not even you." Her words hit him like a storm. He saw not a warrior, not an alien leader, but a soul stripped bare, desperate for acceptance. She had carried this fear for so long it had become part of her, and now she was offering him the chance to confirm it, or destroy it. His throat tightened. He could not bring himself to look away. Every scar on her body, every mark of pain was not weakness. To him, it was survival, proof that she had endured what others could not. She stepped closer, her voice trembling more now. "Tell me," she begged, "when you look at me, do you see a warrior, or do you see a failure?" The question broke him inside, because he knew. She wasn't asking about the scars. She was asking if she had worth beyond the mask, beyond the armor, beyond the lies she had been forced to wear. He inhaled sharply, his chest aching with the weight of her pain. He wanted to scream the answer, but he held it back, because he knew this moment wasn't about his voice. It was about his presence. So he stood tall, unblinking, meeting her gaze with all the steadiness he could muster. He let his silence speak. "I see you. I accept you. I will not look away." And in that fragile silence, something shifted in her eyes. The fear was still there, but behind it, faint as a spark in the dark, was hope. For the first time, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, her scars did not make her less. For a long moment, the room was still. The only sound was the low hum of the ship's engines, steady and constant like a heartbeat in the distance. He stood there looking at her, his chest tight, his throat dry. She stood opposite him, trembling but unyielding, her scars bared. Under the dim lights, her question still lingered in the air. "Do you see a warrior or do you see a failure?" He wanted to answer immediately, but the weight of the moment held him back. He knew his words mattered. If he said the wrong thing, if he let even a hint of pity touch his voice, she would shatter. She wasn't asking for comfort. She was asking for truth. Slowly, carefully, he took a step closer. His movements were calm, deliberate, as if he was approaching a wild creature who could vanish with the smallest wrong gesture. "You think these scars make you less?" he said softly. His voice was low but steady. "But where I come from, scars are not weakness. Scars are stories." Her glowing blue eyes flickered, uncertain. "Every line," he continued, raising his hand to his chest. "Every mark, every wound. It means you fought, it means you survived. That is not failure, that is courage." She stared at him, her lips parting slightly as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. He took another step forward. He was close enough now to see the faint shimmer of tears on her skin, close enough to feel the trembling in the air between them. "On my world," he said, his voice stronger now. "We honor those who show their truth. We don't turn away from it. We don't call it shame. We call it strength." She shook her head, her voice sharp with disbelief. "Strength? These are wounds. These are mistakes." "No," he replied quickly, his tone fierce. "These are proof that you stood when others would have fallen. Proof that you lived when others would have died. That's not weakness, that's survival." For the first time, his words seemed to strike her deeper than the weight of her own fear. Her eyes softened, the storm inside them shifting, though doubt still lingered like a shadow. She whispered almost to herself, "But my people, they would cast me out for this." He nodded slowly, understanding. "Then they are blind." Her head jerked up at his answer, surprise flickering across her face. "Where I come from," he said, his voice steady, "we know that perfection is a lie. We know that strength isn't about never falling, it's about rising again after you do. You carry scars, yes, but scars are proof that nothing could break you completely. Not war, not pain, not death itself. You are still here, and that makes you stronger than anyone who has never bled." Her breath hitched. She had expected rejection, or silence, or pity, but not this, not reverence. Slowly, he lifted his hand. He didn't touch her, not yet, but he held it close as if offering without demanding. His eyes never left hers. "I don't look away because what I see isn't failure. What I see is someone braver than I will ever be. What I see is a warrior." Her lips trembled, and for the first time her tears fell freely. Not tears of shame, but something different. Something lighter, almost like relief. She reached out, her fingers brushing against his hand, hesitant, fragile. When their skin finally touched, she flinched, as if the simple act burned. But she didn't pull back. "You," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You truly mean this?" He nodded without hesitation. "With everything I am." The silence that followed was no longer heavy. It was gentle, fragile, almost sacred. The fear that had filled her eyes began to fade, replaced by something softer, hope. For the first time since she entered his room, her shoulders lowered, the tension easing. She looked at him like he was not just a human, but something more. Something she could finally trust, and in that moment a truth settled in both their hearts. She had shown him her deepest fear, her greatest shame, and he had not turned away. Instead, he had given her something her people never could: acceptance. For her, that was more powerful than any blade, any armor, any tradition. And for him, it was the beginning of something far greater than he had ever imagined. Her body trembled, as if every word he had spoken had shaken something locked deep inside her. For a moment she stood tall, her tears falling silently, her breath uneven but steady. But then, as if her strength finally gave way, her knees bent. He reacted instantly, rushing forward before she could fall. His arms wrapped around her, catching her fragile frame before it hit the floor. She gasped, not from pain but from the shock of being held. No one had ever caught her before. No one had ever dared. Her weight against him was light, but the weight of her heart was crushing. She clung to him, her silver skin warm and trembling, her tears soaking into his shoulder. "No one has ever stayed," she whispered, her voice broken. "Not my kin, not my comrades, not even my blood." Her words pierced him like a blade. He could hear the truth in them, the loneliness she had carried, the silence that had followed her through every battle. She had lived surrounded by people yet untouched, unseen. She buried her face against his chest, her voice trembling with each word. "They look at me and see what is broken. They see the scars, the burns, the flaws. To them I am unworthy. To them I am shame." He held her tighter, feeling her shiver as if she feared he would let go at any moment. But he didn't. He wouldn't. Her fingers dug into his shirt, desperate, like she was clinging to the last piece of hope left to her. "Why?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Why do you not turn away? Why do you not cast me aside like the others?" He closed his eyes, his chest aching. He could feel her pain in every word, every tear. She had built her life on armor, not just metal, but silence, distance, pride. And now, stripped of all of it, she was breaking apart in his arms. He pulled back just enough to look at her face. Her glowing eyes were dim with sorrow, her tears falling freely, her lips trembling. She looked so lost, so fragile, and yet so beautiful in her truth. "Because you are not broken," he said softly, firmly. "You are alive, and that is worth more than perfection." Her breath hitched. She stared at him as if she had never heard those words before, as if she couldn't believe someone could think them. He continued, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "Scars don't mean weakness. They mean survival. They mean you stood through pain that would have destroyed others. You carry proof that nothing could end you, not even the darkest battles. That is not shame. That is strength." Her lips parted, trembling as if she wanted to argue, but no words came. Instead, more tears spilled, and she collapsed fully into his arms. For the first time, she allowed herself to lean on someone else. For the first time, she surrendered the weight she had carried alone. Her body shook with silent sobs, each one cutting deeper into him than any blade could. He held her, through all of it, his arms firm, his voice quiet but constant. "I will not let go. Not now. Not ever." She gripped him tighter, as if testing whether his promise was real, as if expecting him to vanish like everyone else had. But he stayed. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Slowly, her sobs quieted, her trembling eased. She pulled back, slightly, her eyes red, her face streaked with tears. She looked at him with a kind of wonder, as if seeing something she never thought existed. You truly believe this?" she asked, her voice hoarse. He nodded without hesitation. "I do. With everything I am." For a moment she only stared at him, breathing unevenly. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words. Then finally a sound escaped her throat. Not a sob, not a cry, but a quiet laugh, broken and raw, yet filled with something new. Relief. She shook her head slowly, almost disbelieving. "You are strange, human. Strange and different." He smiled faintly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Maybe. But I think sometimes being different is exactly what's needed." Her hand lifted, trembling, and she placed it gently against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. She closed her eyes for a moment, leaning into the warmth, and for the first time, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she was not alone anymore. The room felt calmer now. Her sobs had quieted, and though her eyes were still wet, there was a new light inside them. She sat beside him on the edge of the bed, her armor scattered like fallen pieces of a forgotten world. For the first time, she was not hiding behind steel or silence. She was simply herself. Her hand still rested on his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart. It seemed to calm her, to remind her that he was real and not a dream she would wake from. But then, slowly, her hand slipped away. Her expression changed, the storm of fear returning to her face. "You do not understand," she said quietly, her voice heavy. "What I have done tonight. If my people knew, I would be cast out. I would have no clan, no name, no honor." He frowned, tilting his head toward her. "For showing the truth?" She nodded, her jaw tightening. "For removing my armor, for letting you see me as I am. It is forbidden. It is betrayal of everything they believe." She looked away, her gaze fixed on the floor, on the broken pieces of metal that once made her untouchable. "If I stay with you, I will lose everything. My people will never take me back. I will not belong anywhere." Her words carried a sharp pain, a kind of fear deeper than death. To her, exile was worse than wounds, worse than scars, worse than battle. It was erasure. To live without a name was to live as nothing. He reached out, gently tilting her chin so she would meet his eyes again. His voice was soft but steady. If they would cast you out for being honest, then they never deserved you. Her lips parted, her eyes widening with surprise. You speak as if it is simple, but it is not. My people are my blood. My people are everything I have ever known. He nodded. I understand. But sometimes blood is not enough. Sometimes family is not the ones who share your name, but the ones who stand when everyone else walks away. His words struck her, and for a long moment she was silent. She searched his face as though trying to see if he truly meant them, if this was not just comfort but belief, and she saw no doubt, no hesitation, only truth. Her voice trembled as she spoke again. If I stay with you, I will lose honor. I will lose tradition. I will lose my people. He leaned closer, his tone fierce but gentle. Then let me give you something greater. A name, if you want it. A place, if you need it. And honor, not the kind that chains you, but the kind you can carry freely. She inhaled sharply, her breath catching. She had expected pity. She had expected him to tell her to return to her people, to hide the scars again, to continue living behind the armor. But instead, he offered her freedom. Her tears returned, softer, this time not born of despair but of disbelief. She shook her head slowly, almost smiling through the pain. You humans, you see value where my people see ruin. You give honor where my people give shame. You are strange. He smiled faintly. Maybe. But maybe being strange is what makes us human. She stared at him, her blue eyes glowing faintly, softer than before. In them was conflict, but also hope. A war raged within her heart, loyalty to the people who raised her, against the truth she had finally found in him. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. If I choose you, I choose exile. I choose to walk away from everything I have ever been. He took her hand in his, firm and steady. Then walk toward something new. Walk toward a life where you are seen, where you are not broken but whole, where you are not armor, but yourself. She trembled at his words, her breath uneven, her lips quivering as if holding back 1,000 emotions at once. For the first time she smiled, not the sharp smile of a warrior, not the cold smile of pride, but a fragile, genuine smile that reached her eyes. Then maybe, she whispered, I will walk toward you. And with those words, the weight of her choice began to lift. Not fully, not completely, but enough for her to breathe, enough for her to hope. The ship drifted through the endless dark of space, but inside his room, the air felt warmer, alive. The alien girl sat close to him, her body no longer hidden by steel, her scars no longer hidden by shame. For the first time in her life she was seen, not as a warrior, not as a symbol, but as herself. Yet her decision weighed heavy in her heart. The choice she had spoken of still lingered between them. If she stayed with him, she would lose everything she had once known, her people, her name, her place among them. And still, part of her clung to the life she had always believed she needed. He could see it in her eyes, the silent war she fought within. He did not rush her. He did not press her. He only stayed, steady and unshaken, the way he had been from the moment she asked him not to look away. Hours passed in quiet, broken only by the hum of the ship and the sound of their breathing. Finally she spoke. Her voice was soft, uncertain, but filled with weight. I have lived my life behind walls of steel, she said, looking down at the scattered pieces of her armor. I was told that only the armor gave me worth, that without I was nothing. I believed it. I carried that lie for years. She lifted her gaze to him, her glowing eyes glimmering with emotion. But tonight I shed it. I showed you the truth. I gave you what I could not give anyone else. And still, you did not turn away." Her words struck him, but he remained, silent, letting her continue. She reached out, her hand trembling as she touched one of her scars, tracing it gently. "These marks, they told me they were shame. Proof that I failed. Proof that I was weak. But when you looked at them, you did not see shame. You saw strength." Her voice cracked and she clenched her fists. "No one has ever given me that. No one has ever stayed. But you stayed." Tears filled her eyes again, but they were not the same as before. They were lighter, almost shining with hope. She leaned closer, her voice breaking but stronger at the same time. "You gave me what my people never could. Acceptance. You gave me something greater than honor. You gave me freedom." He reached for her hand, holding it firmly, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "I gave you nothing you didn't already deserve," he said softly. "I only saw what was always there." Her lips trembled, and for a moment she could not speak. Then, with a deep breath, she whispered the words that sealed her choice. "Then I will stay. Not because I have no place else to go, but because you gave me one. I will walk beside you, human, because when I stripped away my armor, when I showed you everything I was, you were the only one who did not look away." The silence that followed was powerful, almost sacred. He felt the truth of her words sink deep into his chest. She had chosen him, not out of weakness, but out of strength, out of trust. For her, this was not a small act. This was rebellion. This was exile. This was freedom. She had given up her entire world to walk beside someone who saw her as whole. He pulled her into his arms again, not as a savior, but as a partner. She leaned into him, closing her eyes, her lips curling into a faint smile. And in that embrace, both of them knew this was the beginning of something new. Later, when others asked her why she had stayed with a human, why she had abandoned her people's traditions, she always gave the same answer. "Because when I undressed my armor and showed my scars, he was the only one who didn't look away." It became her truth. It became her vow. And it became the proof that humanity, in its strange, simple way, could offer something no other people could. Compassion strong enough to heal even the deepest wounds. And so, the alien warrior who once lived in fear walked into the stars with a human by her side, not as a soldier bound by armor, but as a soul finally free.